Well, Palace have lost again. Even though we predicted it in the preview, it still doesn't take away from the fact that it was another poor performance. I don't know what it's been in the restart, but we love to just not put the effort in. And that's always been something that I've really never really attributed to a Palace team. So definitely in the years that I've been watching Palace growing up, and definitely in the Prem, we've always put the effort in. We may not get the result at the end of the day, but we always fight for each other. And just since the restart, we've been so inconsistent. Some great games and performances in terms, well, against Chelsea and Man United. They're the two that stand out, obviously, but and Bournemouth. And then Leicester, Burnley, this game against Wolves is just so bad. The performances, not the worst first half, I'll give them that. We weren't good, but we definitely weren't bad. I thought we were the better team for large parts. We were a better team for some parts of the first half, in my opinion, even though we didn't create anything worth talking about, apart from that Schlupp chance. And it just goes to show how much we need a goal scorer. How is he? He's got to bury that Schlupp. He has to put that away to go 1-0 up. And Wolves will get the opener through again, a misplaced pass from Palace. How many times are we going to give away the ball sloppily since we've come back? It's something we need to look out for sure, because it's happening every week now. We're giving the ball away so sloppily in the middle of the park. I do think the 4-4-2, and I was really happy going into the game. I tweeted about it with the formation and the setup, the starting 11. I was really happy Royce actually changed it, and he's put a youngster in Mitchell, who I thought had an okay game. It's so hard when you're up against Traore on your Premier League, you know, your first start in the Premier League, first start for Palace. It's probably one of the hardest wingers, arguably in the world, you could come up with in your first ever game in professional football, you know, a first start, I should say. And I thought he did okay. Bearing that in mind, I don't think he did too bad a job at all. Yes, the second goal kind of came from his side and he allowed Traore to cut inside. But in the first half, he made sure he went down out wide to the byline to put crosses in, and negates half of what Traore is about by doing that, I think. So I think he did okay for large parts of the first half, and was okay in the second, quite quiet in general. But my point being, I was happy to see him starting, and it just gave everyone a boost. Now, the fact that we kept giving the ball away sloppily kind of then took away from that, because we then gifted them the goal. Lovely goal from the way it was played by Wolves, and Martinez's pass was filthy, and it just shows, you know, what we're missing with a creative player there that can do that sort of pass. I'm going to still say Mike is that man who can unlock a pass, maybe not to that level, but he is that man who can take the ball in the half turn and do that if he's played. And that is the big question mark. Will he get played, or do we just sell and just look to, you know, cut our losses there with Maya? That is something we'll get onto in the summer, I'm sure. But overall, in that first half, not the end of the world. I thought it was okay, but going in 1-0 down, and our record, as I mentioned in the preview, when we concede first, we always go on to lose. We rarely ever get anything out of games, and that's because we defend well. This season, we've been defensively sound for the most of the season, I would say. We've been one of the better, and that's been the key to the reason why we're not in a relegation battle right now, is because we've had a good defence. The problem is we are the second fewest goals in the league, and so when we go 1-0 down, we just don't get back in the game. You may as well turn off the TV. Really, there's no point watching anymore. That's how it feels, you know. When we go 1-0 up, it's a different ball game. We are much more likely. I think 80% of our games from going ahead, we've gone on to at least get a point out of it, because our defence is good and solid in a winning position. When we're chasing a game, we've got no answers going forward, and it's so frustrating. Lack of subs from Roy as well. Again, another issue that we know all about. Riedewald coming on for Schlupp. I get Schlupp coming off, but why bring on Riedewald? Why don't you put Pierrick on, or Maya, or someone who can try and get back into the game instead of a defensive-minded player? It's just frustration there from the manager. Again, second half, there was nothing really to talk about in the second half apart from the goal. Traore bullying McArthur and Mitchell. That's probably Mitchell's only real error, in my opinion, or big error. And he'll learn from it. He'll learn. He's young. You've got to give him the benefit of the doubt in that situation. We didn't defend the Johnny shot well at all. And that was all that really happened. We allowed Wolves to play around and dictate the tempo in the second half. And we just didn't look, as I mentioned already, hungry or willing to fight for the ball and to try and win it back. we just let them play. It was like a training drill. It looked like we're on the beach and we didn't really care. And that is the one thing that I get frustrated about. Even when there's 2 games left to go, this is our last away game of the season, and we've got nothing to play for. We're going to finish mid-table or low in the bottom half of the table comfortably. Well away from the bottom. We are going to finish above Brighton as well, because Brighton only could draw today. Even though we've got nothing to play for, there's still no excuse for that performance, especially in the second half when we're trailing. I don't know what he said to the players at half-time, Roy, but they definitely weren't inspired. The most inspired thing was probably Wilf changing his boots in the second half, and that just goes to show the situation we're in. And it's going to be, again, I've mentioned it already, it's going to be massive, massive summer for us, and can't wait to see what happens.